Martinique, and Martinique remains an area of high risk for us because
you see all the nice things, all the appealing things, all the emotional things to touch people's heart because you want them to support you and follow you, you inspire them, you give them hope, and they follow you.
But what about the culture of people getting to office and not being effective in terms of
portfolio?
No, but caller, hold on.
Who handled his portfolio?
Hold on, caller, hold on. Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's news.
Hi, Philip Gager here. I would like to be judged as being the Prime Minister, not being judged as being part of a government.
Came into government that we had a manifesto and a vision and mission that had been approved by my party, by the highest body.
We have to take pride on how we've handled
the illegal entry of persons coming in from Martinique, and Martinique remains an area of high risk for us
You
because
see all the nice things, all the appealing things, all the emotional things to touch people's heart because you want them to support you and follow you, you inspire them, you give them hope, and they follow you.
But what about the culture of people getting to office and not being effective in terms of
Portfolio.
No, but caller, hold on.
Who handled his portfolio?
Hold on, caller, hold on. Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's
Being part of a government.
Came into government that we had a manifesto and a vision and mission that had been approved by my party, by the highest body.
We have to take pride on how we've handled
the illegal entry of persons coming in from Martinique, and Martinique remains an area of high risk for us
You
because
see all the nice things, all the appealing things, all the emotional things to touch people's heart because you want them to support you and follow you, you inspire them, you give them hope, and they follow you.
But what about the culture of people getting to office and not being effective in terms of
Portfolio.
No, but caller, hold on.
Who handled his portfolio?
Hold on, caller, hold on. Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's news.
Hi, Philip Gager here. I would like to be judged as being the Prime Minister, not being judged as being part of a government.
Came into government that we had a manifesto
Good evening to you. Welcome to another edition of the broadcast Newssmaker Live with me, Timothy Poleon. Of course, we go up until 10 o'clock this evening, at which time we conclude, of course, of our broadcast developments in the island's tourism sector. That is from a particular perspective. We look at the crime problem on the island, inflation, the impact of increased gas prices, what this could do to the vital tourism industry, and how it possibly can try to cushion the impact on that sector. We also will be focusing on media matters and a whole lot more, and that is from a particular perspective. My guest this evening is former tourism minister, former minister with responsibility for information and broadcasting, former MP for Ancillary Canaries. He is opposition Senator Dominic Fedee. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Tim, for having me. Good evening to your guest. Good evening to your viewers, rather. And I'm happy to be your guest tonight, and want to say a special good evening to the people of Ancillary Canaries.
Let's look at matters relating to the people, bread and butter issues. We're talking about inflation. It is on the increase, and it is hurting people in terms of their pockets, in terms of survival, in terms of their spending power. What can any government do about this? Because that's an issue that is preoccupying the minds and the hearts of the people of the United States, the UK, you name it. We are no different in St. Lucia. What can any government do about this?
Well, first of all, I think that I want to take this opportunity to sympathize with the many citizens of our country who are feeling the pinch right now, whether it's at the supermarket, whether it's at the pumps at the gas station, whether it's at various places of interest, going to Select to pay their utility bills. It really is causing a severe problem in our country, and it is not just an abstract issue that we see on CNN anymore. Now, to your question, look at what Barbados has done. Look at what Jamaica has done. They have put measures in place because they understand the grave nature, how this is affecting so many citizens within their own country. I don't share the view that nothing can be done, and I know that the Prime Minister did issue that statement to suggest that because we're an import economy, that we couldn't do anything to ease the strain. It is our view that the government, through a number of policy decisions, can help the people of St. Lucia to buffer and cushion this.
In what way?
We have recommended the reduction of VAT from 12.5% to 10%, to widen and expand the electricity.
Okay, but before we continue, in terms of VAT, don't you think that we'll be literally losing a lot of money, and we can ill afford to do that right now? Because take, for example, the wage bill, public sector wage bill. It will not go away, despite you reducing the VAT, as you're suggesting, what, from 12.5% to 10%. You're going to lose money along the way. How do you meet your financial obligations and commitments as a government amidst this?
So we've been through this before. When we actually reduced VAT, what we saw was, instead of us losing 52 million, as suggested by some of the experts, we saw that people's consumption went up. And so the gross value of the total consumption actually allowed us to collect somewhere close to where we were. But what it did, Tim, is that it allowed people to be able to afford certain day-to-day commodities in the supermarkets. And so that affordability, it might have been 2.5 percentage points that the tax came down, but it actually worked out to be about 16% in terms of the rate that was charged. So therefore, if you went down, what this will do, it will increase people's spending power. They will spend that money back into the economy anyway, and you will pick up something close to where it is. We were very targeted in the areas where we increased the revenue. When we reduced VAT, there wasn't the tourism head tax. The government is certainly going to have a net saving from the tourism head tax that we have imposed. Every single year, they would have had to subsidize the St. Lucia Tourist Board to about $35 to $40 million. That is a big saving, because today, by the recovery which is coming in within the tourism sector, we're now picking up the marketing of the tourism budget from that tourism head tax. The other thing we did was to also increase the departure taxes on tourists that are coming through the airport. So when we assumed office, it was at somewhere about $25. We increased it by $38 for a airport development fee, which goes directly to SLASPA to help to finance the airport development loan. And as well, we increased the departure taxes by $35. So every tourist that comes in is giving the government an extra $35. Now, we did so, Tim, pre-COVID. I appreciate that. We've just been through COVID. A lot of the loans that we have taken, they have moratoriums on them because we used the COVID situation to get several of our loans to be repurposed. So instead of market-driven debt where you would have to pay bonds and treasury bills, sometimes the investors would want to redeem their bonds and it would have a knock-on effect on the government's cash flow. But by repurposing a lot of the debt to long-term debt where the term was longer as well as the moratorium was favorable and the interest rate was also concessionary, you have brought down the interest rate. You have also eased up the cash flow that government would have had, let's say back in 2019 when we were dealing with a lot more market-driven debt. So there's a lot of space that we have created that gives the government the flexibility to be able to give the people some ease. We were certainly going to do it, and we made that pronouncement at the last election campaign. It was one of our manifesto issues because we had done the analysis and we realized that by recovering the economy that it was quite possible to reduce the VAT rate to 10%. But that was just one measure that could be taken.
But what if, before you continue, what if the government decides because of its serious cash flow problems caused by COVID and now would have been exacerbated by the war in Eastern Europe, it decides to increase VAT? Isn't that fair for the government to do that? Because in the case of Barbados, where incentives are given to various sectors and so on, you have a pandemic levy, 1% on people who are earning $75,000 and more. So
I think that would be a backward step to increase VAT at this time, especially when the prices are so high and when people are feeling it. I think that this would be a very harsh thing to do on the populace of this country. And I think that ordinary consumers will find this extremely difficult and untenable. So what we have to do is to ensure that we continue to either keep VAT where it is, but a reduction in the rate would actually be very helpful. And I think that we're now seeing that the tourism industry is recovering, Tim. So all those taxes I've mentioned, in addition to the consumption taxes that you're going to get from the tourism industry, is also going to help to give you a better revenue yield. So the government is in a much better position than where we were in the height of the pandemic when the tourism sector was closed. You had massive unemployment. You had to give people income support. You had to find that money, as well as continue to pay those bills. We paid salaries on time. We paid our debt obligations, never defaulted on those bills, and we continue to run the country.
Why do you think that politicians, while in opposition, give the impression that you could easily take certain decisions and that will redound to the benefit of the citizen and also the country as a whole? And when they're in office, they appear to be more responsible in terms of their utterances, in terms of their approaches. They seem to be more conservative.
I can't say that I agree with that generalization because certainly we made those promises while we were in government. We were the incumbent, and in our manifesto, while going to the people to say, re-elect us, we said, this is what we're going to do. These are in fact, in our 5 for 5, it was one of the main initiatives that we actually did support and pioneered because we felt that it was important and we saw that the economy had some significant gains and there was some buoyancy by helping to reduce the VAT rate. What we have learned now is that when the Labour Party implemented the VAT rate at 15%, We saw small businesses closing. We saw economic contraction. In fact, we had 2 years of negative economic growth. We had a lot of small businesses closing. And we saw a situation that was untenable. So instead of coming in and repairing the fiscal situation, it actually worsened the fiscal situation because there wasn't that discipline as well to ensure that our borrowing habits would have changed within that time, and that we had policies that were friendly towards growing the economy so that you can improve the debt to GDP ratio, because it's a two-way transaction of the debt going in one direction and the GDP going in one direction. The fiscal situation that you see now, it is because we lost 20% of our economy to COVID. And you are about to regain some of that. And as you regain that, the debt to GDP ratio as a formula will improve.
But to the ordinary man who is watching this broadcast right now, it does not amount to much to him or her.
Well, if you go to the bank and the bank says, okay, how much is your salary? And you say it's $10. And the bank says, well, right now you are at your income is $10 and your debt is already at $8. I can't lend you any money. And that is because you're working less hours. Now, let's say next week you then go from 2 days a week to 4 days a week, and now you're making $20. All of a sudden, your debt is at $8 and your income is at $20.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that the ordinary man who's watching this broadcast right now, his living conditions have not improved over several years now, maybe several decades. I mean, in terms of what you're recommending, and you're not in a position to implement, what gives you the impression that this individual at this point in time will be confident that his or her situation will improve any time soon? Because come the period when the Prime Minister will be delivering his address on the estimates of revenue and expenditure and so on, he will be probably saying just about the same thing that any Prime Minister would have said in the past, confronted by external challenges such as 9/11 and now
he's going to blame the United Workers' Party, actually. I disagree with you. He's going to blame the United Workers' Party because it's been the habit of this government to govern in the past by looking in the rearview mirror.
And the UWP would blame the SLP as well?
What we're doing, Tim, is we are presenting some measures that we believe that are workable. We're saying, listen, give some more electricity support. It was a program that worked well during the pandemic, and we did it while we didn't have a tourism industry. The place was closed. We provided income support to people. We ensure that we got some food hampers for vulnerable individuals. So these are not pie-in-the-sky ideas that we're suggesting in our 6-point plan. What we're suggesting are very workable and real solutions, which we saw at a more difficult time for government revenue that, we were able to implement. And so this is the level of sincerity with which I'm putting this forward to your broadcast. But what do you think are some of the
radical changes, generally speaking, you think governments must take in St. Lucia to ensure that whenever those external factors occur, that we do not immediately start to feel the effects? Take, for example, we've been speaking for years, for decades now, about food security, and we've not been able to achieve much as far as this is concerned. Do you think that governments on the whole in St. Lucia tend to be too lackadaisical in terms of implementing new measures and in terms of taking risks, in terms of implementing major decisions?
Well, again, I think of when we were in government, and I think, we've got to have a more dynamic implementation rate of the policies that we espouse. So, for example, if we're trying to do youth development initiatives, it can't be something we're talking about for 5 years, which is why when I served, I ensured that we drive a lot of it. And, whoever I chose to work with me as the implementer of policies, I ensured that there were people that had energy, and they weren't a traditional civil servant who just was going through the merry way. And this is a big problem. I know it's not a a politically sensible thing to say, but we've got to really face that reality. This country is too hard and remains too hard for doing business. Too many people had to call ministers while we were in government to get certain things done because going through the system was just too slow. And sometimes a lot of people got frustrated and totally gave up because the system was extremely unhelpful. And what we were trying to do was to quicken the implementation rate at various levels, which is why we had the Pamandu project. And it was a project that worked very well in places like Singapore and Malaysia. And we had a management system to ensure that public service was being dispensed to the people at a pace that was rapid, sensible, and that was in real time to the rest of the economy. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
How do you think that this
in
can
the
be
ease of
improved? Do
doing-
you think an administration should come with key people to work in key positions so that those things can be fast-tracked in terms of the policies of a new government?
You need to have the civil servants more accountable. They're the ones that implement the policy. Remember, ministers are policy makers. And so the people that are driving the policy need to drive it a lot faster. And we need to have a performance-based remuneration system so that people's remuneration are pegged towards their performance levels. And we have to reform government. We have to ensure that it's working, and currently it's not.
The size of the public service. That's a recurring problem. I'm sure that the Prime Minister, again, during his presentation, will make reference to the size of the wage bill. But no government wants to do anything about it. It is because what? You can pay a political price if you reduce on the size of the public service, despite realizing the burden.
Well, we have had this conversation a lot whilst in government, and what we saw was, listen, you need more teachers. You need more police officers. You just don't have enough. You need more firemen. You need more nurses. So those are all critical areas that you're speaking of. And so, therefore, I think that you have to be very strategic and you have to look at where you do need the cuts. About 75% of the civil service that we're speaking of comprise of those critical areas where we do need more support and more staff. What we would need is to ensure that there's greater coordination, there's more efficiency, there's greater communication between the agencies. But generally, we have to work together to ensure that the various agencies are working collaboratively to ensure that there's that dynamism. When we formed the command center, I saw amazing things happen because various agencies that didn't have a habit of working together, the police, the fire department, the Ministry of Health, tourism, and all the core sectors that had some aspect or some relevance to the COVID management, came together and we met every single day. And we ensured that we work hard to ensure that we drive this country out of the pandemic. And I'm very proud of what we were able to do. But you need to be at a project team and you need to be laser focused at it. And you need to ensure that you're driving it. And that's the only way that it can be done. So leadership is required at all levels. Less politics, more leadership. I'm very proud, Tim, that when it was necessary, during COVID, and it was a very difficult time for every government in the Caribbean, and you speak to all the leaders in the region, and I'm sure that they'll tell you. But I'm very proud that we didn't play a lot of politics with that. We ensured that we were rising to the occasion of where the country was at, because it was a crisis that we had never seen in our history. And I'm glad that our government was up to the task in ensuring that we made the right decisions. People became extremely COVID fatigued. The pandemic, it raged on for quite a while. And, we didn't have a lot of vaccines the innovation of a vaccine wasn't then. So now there's a bit more flexibility in terms of what you can do, although the vaccination rates need to go up. But to put it very frankly, I think that we worked very well together.
But what was your mindset like? You as a person, you as a tourism minister holding that critical portfolio. What was your mindset like during the offset of COVID-19? Well,
tourism was gone. I woke up one day and, the arrivals were looking very good, the forward bookings, and then all of a sudden we had to close. The world was just closing. All the airports were closing, and that was it. And I had at the back of my mind trying to reopen the industry, but at the same time, it was a situation whereby we needed all hands on deck. And I made myself available when I was asked by the cabinet to spearhead what was taking place at the command center, to be the conduit between the command center and the cabinet, because we felt that it was a crisis that required leadership at the very top, and we wanted to ensure that all levels of the government, the civil service, the cabinet, that you had great representation, and that we were giving the assistance that was necessary to the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health, whom I worked very, very closely with. I tend to speak a lot more than she does, and but she's a very, very efficient person and very cooperative, and we worked very well together because we realized that this was a moment where it needed us to put our political hats away and to focus on the job at hand.
If you had to do things differently and knowing everything that you know right now about COVID-19, what would you do differently when COVID surfaced?
Certainly the communication. We had to explain to the people why we were doing a lot of the things. A lot of politics came into play. The opposition was saying close the borders. They were saying at one time almost as if there wasn't any COVID. They held a march and just sending the wrong signal. And I think what leaders say, it does matter. And, when you are serving in a political office, that office is a very influential office. And I think that you need to ensure that you carry that office well to ensure that you're bettering your country. And now I believe that we're in a position, we've placed ourselves in a position where we've undermined the ability to be able to manage COVID and come out of it successfully. We should have been way ahead in terms of vaccination rates. We should have been way ahead in terms of recovering from this crisis. And it will continue to haunt us. Any spike that comes, we are vulnerable to it because we have not reached herd immunity. We're still below 30% of the vaccination rate 2 years out, and we ideally need to be at 70% of immunization.
Why do you think we are so politically divided, even when we're experiencing a pandemic and the effects of it in so many cases of COVID-19, 20,000, and also so many deaths? I don't think that any politician can absolve themselves of responsibility as far as the divisiveness that we're experiencing right now. So I'm just asking across the board, why are we so divided politically? And do you take any responsibility for this?
I will start with myself and allow the others to speak for themselves. I think, Tim, that, I've had 5 years at this. This is my first time. And there are a lot of things that I would have done differently to make sure that you heal the country rather than divide, and to reach across the aisle a little more and to see how best you can work with some of your colleagues so that you can perhaps arrive at more bipartisanship to deal with a lot of the serious problems that we face even today. We spoke about inflation, the high cost of living. SLPs and UWPs are being affected. And, I believe that when an election is over, one of the things that you wouldn't find from us is us being insincere about what we feel about a certain thing or an issue, because I believe that there are grave consequences for our country when you do that. And what we have to do is to ensure that we sacrifice and resist the temptation of scoring or to achieve narrow political objectives and focus on the broader goal of advancing our country. And so when we speak of reducing the VAT rate, we speak out of understanding that a lot of people are hurting because of what we are feeling at this present time, because of the high cost of goods, the high cost of gas. $14.95 for a gallon of gas is very expensive. And, LPG gas, and you go into the supermarket now. I saw an Instagram post from an influencer, and he was saying that, a portion of local chicken backs, he showed the price tag in the supermarket was $37. I mean, you're talking about chicken backs. And this is a very basic household commodity that affects every ordinary person. And really, I think that this is an issue where the opposition must rise to the occasion and must not just criticize, which is why we took the time to do some research and look at where we felt the fiscal situation was and how we can be responsible and suggest to the government a few things that can help the people to ease this pain, because it is possible. Other Caribbean countries, Barbados is in a worse position than we are. The debt to GDP ratio is over 100. Mm-hmm. They're in an IMF program. The Jamaican fiscal situation is worse than where we are in St. Lucia, and they are able to implement measures, and we can't. We can't have those excuses. We can't buy those excuses. And so, which is why we're using our voice in the opposition to say, listen, you need to do something about the cost of living. Because while this is happening, Tim, the salaries of people are not going up. In fact, inflation over the last 20 years, it's been outpacing the growth of salaries in this country. And that is a grave problem. And so when you talk about what can we do to radically change people's circumstances, it has to be to imagine a new economy that will ensure that in the next 15, 20 years, that people are earning more. People are empowered to afford their own housing, empowered to afford university education, that they are able to afford medical insurance and all the things and amenities that are necessary for someone to be comfortably in the middle class in St. Lucia today.
The 6-point plan is being proposed by the opposition is being described as, among other things, being disingenuous. The government is not giving any credence to the suggestions that are being proposed by the opposition. What say you to this?
The government has its prerogative, but we have our voice, and we will continue to sound that voice in the best interest of the people of St. Lucia. And where we feel that we need to keep them honest on certain issues, we certainly will. Because, Tim, I believe that for the good governance of the country, you need to ensure that you have a very effective, strong opposition, and that we will do.
How can it be strong and effective with just 2 MPs, elected MPs, in the House of Assembly?
That's the elected MPs, but I mean, in the court of public opinion, there are thousands of voices, thousands of individuals that agree with us. If I had to look at the results of the last elections, what I saw, there were 7 seats that lost by less than 200. So basically what I'm saying to you, that the country is still split in the middle on a range of issues, and certainly in its political views.
The United Workers' Party, in terms of rebuilding, where it's at right now?
Very advanced. We've completed a review. A report is being written right now by an independent consultant, which will be forwarded to our National Council, which is the highest governing body of the party. And that report will be reviewed by all, and then we will see what the recommendations are, and then analyze the situation, and then you will see some very exciting things happening within the United Workers' Party. I can tell you that we're working on things like our communication to ensure that we beef up the capacity of a lot of various areas within the organization, and very soon you'll see some very exciting pronouncements made by the chairman and the political leader.
The consultant, foreign or local?
It's a blend of both.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we have the very best very best talent, and so we ensure that we have local talent, and also we have international friends as well.
Before the report comes out and you get to go through it thoroughly, in your own mind, what caused the United Workers' Party to lose so miserably during the last general election?
A combination of things. I think that COVID-19 was a big spoiler. When I look at, for example, the amount of unpopular decisions that we had to make to ensure that the people of St. Lucia were safe from this pandemic that the world knew little about. There are a lot of allegations that went unanswered on our part, so certainly our public relations. We had a great story to tell. When you look around this country, you see improvements everywhere. You drive through, I was driving through Babonneau today, and I was like, wow. I was very proud of what my colleague Ezekiel Joseph had done in terms of the roads, and I went through some of the back roads because I realized that they were paving the Union road, where I think you live in that area.
Yeah.
And while that was going on, I was trying to avoid the traffic, and I took some of the back roads of Babonneau, and they're just amazing. So that is just one example that can be replicated all over the country. Look at what Herod has done in Soufrière. Look at what we've done in Anse-Lorraine. Look at what Spider has done. The Casaba Road, which has been very bad for so long. Now I see that this government is building roads, which is great, that they're continuing to do that as well. But the airport project, the piling is completed, and you're going to see the second phase, the superstructure being constructed. This is a major project to advance the economy. You go through the schools in St. Lucia, you can see that the roofs are not leaking anymore. In the area of education, we advanced the path towards advancing e-learning in our schools. We were looking at e-books, where we were going to reduce the cost of textbooks for our people, and opened up Owen King EU Hospital, establish a medical respiratory center to fight COVID, led the country through the pandemic, grew the tourism industry. Even though it was disrupted by COVID, rebuilt it. So there was a great story to tell, but all of it was overshadowed by a lot of sideshows, a lot of issues that were raised, and a lot of unfounded allegations. But in politics, perception is the key thing, and we didn't deal with a lot of those perceptions very well.
And that, one of them you made reference to would have been allegations of corruption. Are you losing sleep over this? The fact that the government now seem very serious about investigating those allegations.
They are, really? But I don't get the impression that the government is serious. I think that they have said what they had to say to win an election, and I served in that cabinet, and I can tell you,
but
Tim,
you're saying that very soon they'll be appointing a special prosecutor.
Oh, this is all gimmickry, and let the prosecutor be appointed, and let's see what comes out. I await the report very enthusiastically. But what I want to say to you is that all of this, they're false allegations as far as I'm aware. I haven't seen anything in my cabinet that would have raised my suspicion. So I'm pretty comfortable with what we have done. I'm very proud. Wherever there was a situation, we have dealt with it as a government. We have led. There were two of our ministers that we had to terminate their appointment to the cabinet. We met. It was a collective decision, and we felt that we owe it to the people of St. Lucia that wherever there was evidence to implicate anyone, that we had to deal with them, and we dealt with it on both circumstances. So what we have clearly shown the people of St. Lucia is a principle of dealing with problems when they arrive, even when they affect us.
Based on the flurry of allegations, do you think that's something that the United Workers' Party will be able to recover from anytime soon?
Well, Timothy, time will tell. And it is now for this government to prove all of the allegations of corruption that they said that they were aware of, and the people will judge them. History will judge them. And, we will either be convicted or exonerated. Let the investigations begin.
As far as crime is concerned, how concerned are you?
Very concerned. Very concerned. And, I feel so sad every time I go to a funeral of people that I know and young men that were shot, got caught up in gun violence. It's a touching situation, and I'm getting emotional about it. You know, what struck me as a parent was a gentleman who was interviewed in the press and said that his friend called him to say, well, his son was shot. And he said he was on his way. He called a friend to accompany him, but he turned back half the way because he just couldn't allow himself. He didn't have the courage to be able to make it to the crime scene. And this really encapsulates the anxiety, the fear, and the hurt that people feel because of it. When I look at the television and I see on the news mothers who are crying because they've lost a son due to untimely death, that can't make anyone feel well. And so there has to be this obligation that we don't politicize crime. But I must tell you that this government must lead, must set a tone, must at least give the people the comfort that there is some plan to deal with this cancerous situation. And it has to be done now. There's an urgency of now to deal with this situation because the implications are too grave and dire.
But the United Workers' Party face that same scourge, the problem with crime. So basically people who are very much in tune with what is happening in the country will tell you that both administrations have failed them as far as crime is concerned. So why do you believe that governments over the last several years have not shown the kind of skill and determination to bring this problem under some level of control? Do you think it's deliberately not wanting to step on certain toes, don't want to ostracize certain people or offend certain people in the country?
I think you would have to ask the current administration that question. I'm not sure why, but I can tell you that we certainly tried our best to show leadership in this area. When you look at opening the forensic lab, which was closed for many, many years, I'm aware now that the police got assistance. By the lab just being open, I think they were able to solve 3 murder cases. This is an example in terms of stepping in the right direction. The radars don't work. We implemented more CCTV cameras in the country. I was today doing some research on that. Vehicles are nothing new. This is very, very basic to ensure that you give the police those vehicles. But Tim, we had a holistic approach. We felt that we had to improve our social services. If you go through the estimates, you would see that we increased our social programs, more after-school programs, more youth programs in crime hotspots, to working with civil society to see how best we can be more targeted to help to ameliorate the situation. And so you've got to go to the heart of the problem. When you have youth unemployment at 44%, as it was in 2015, we actually worked, and by 2019 we'd gotten that down to 31%, reducing that significantly. So what that said to you, Tim, is that less young people were graduating and leaving school and couldn't find a job under the United Workers' Party. That is a big, big, big achievement to reduce the youth unemployment rate by 20% of where it was in 3 short years. Now, COVID came and disrupted that growth and that path of economic growth that we were on. And that is absolutely vital to ensure that you not only blame the police and tell them to do more, but you have a responsibility and an obligation as government to ensure that you as well lead and put more social programs in place, ensure that whatever immediate new opportunity that you're bringing about, that they go directly to the heart of young, restless, vulnerable men who seem to be susceptible to the whole crime situation that is taking place at present.
The Prime Minister is making reference, I think we'll be addressing that thing about the youth economy.
What is the youth economy? Do you know?
Don't you think that it will work? if given the opportunity,
Well,
if
I'm
given a chance,
confused
if given a chance to work?
I'm really confused as to what it is, Tim, to be quite honest. The Prime Minister needs to better articulate what it is he's trying to do for the young people of this country. I think that measure alone can help to inspire and give young people some hope in this country that, you know, at least we can make it in St. Lucia via legal means. And we have to create at least the notion and create the reality as well that we are a country that provides opportunity for young people.
But considering what the young people have gone through over several years now, I mean, why should young people want to vote for any politician or should vote for any politician, whether it's a representative of the UWP or the SLP? Because their situation has been abysmal, I mean, to say the least, okay, with such high unemployment among those people. So the evidence is there that that's all the reason why, not abysmal, but sorry, dismal. That's all the reason why they should not put their confidence in politicians. Is that valid?
Well, that is something that the politics as a profession would need to do better in terms of communicating to young people what those policies are. There are a lot of good policies that would have come from both administrations in the last 25, 30 years. But the problem is ensuring that we reach to the heart of young individuals and to ensure that there's relevance in the governing of the country. If you look at the youth vote, there's a total disinterest in politics in this country. And the youth vote, if you compare it to older individuals, you would find that there's a higher turnout among older individuals. A lot of young people go to the polls because their grandparents or their father or mother dragged them to the polls. But we want to give a lot more meaning and purpose to young individuals. They must understand that the country is going in a certain direction, and we must better communicate to them how they can play a critical role in that development of the country. And that is something that we have to do better as a profession. So I'll admit that that has been a total flaw, and we have to ensure, Tim, that we communicate better to young people overall.
In the chat room, some people are saying that the only way that crime can be solved successfully is if the opposition and the government come together. The beginning of the solution for crime is that both parties must come together, opposition and government, together with corporate citizens, etc., until they agree to do that. No one group can do it on their own. That seems impossible, especially
national
considering the division, getting the two parties together.
But what's possible, I'll tell
unite in that particular issue.
You would recall that we had a national crime symposium where we invited the opposition. I think the leader of the opposition attended and spoke at that symposium. You would recall that very well, Tim.
Yeah.
And so what we were seeking to do was begin that process of trying to get the two parties to work together so that we rally around this common cause of fighting crime and keeping our people safe, keeping our streets safe, ensuring that we can go back to the days when people can go to our beaches at night and don't have to worry that they might be robbed or hijacked. And so, Tim, this is a big, big problem. And it requires us putting aside the petty politics and rise to the occasion. So I agree with that totally. But we must act on it. Now, what I have found is that even in fighting COVID, we always ensured that we went to the NEMAC, which is a body that brings together a cross-section of organizations, your trade unions, government agencies, and other civil society groups. The opposition was always invited and always made a representation because we felt that you needed to have some level of bipartisanship and some level of consensus on important issues. And so you have to call a truce sometimes politically and to ensure that you bring everyone together and talk about, important problems that are going to affect not in this dispensation of governance, but in other dispensations of governance, and is going to affect whichever government is sitting or assuming office at the time. So it becomes absolutely necessary, Tim, for there to be more of a spirit of working together. Today we don't see the NEMAC meetings happening anymore on an important issue like COVID. And whenever the government is ready to talk, we are willing to sit in a room and see how we can come together and discuss this rather important issue.
We'll put a telephone number on screen right now so that you can call with your comments and questions for my guest, former Tourism Minister, his opposition Senator Dominic Fedee. Mr. Fedee, Grenada is preparing to open its borders, in fact, relax all restrictions, likewise, the same is being said about Trinidad and Tobago. St. Lucia, what should we do?
We have no choice. We're going to be left behind. Grenada actually, as of April 4th, you will not be tested. You don't have to fill the cards. Unvaccinated and vaccinated individuals. And this is what I am speaking about in terms of being ahead. Tim, we were one of the first countries to go ahead, put in some protocols. In fact, we shared our protocols with the rest of the Eastern Caribbean because we were bold enough. We went to the airline industry. We said, well, we believe that we can open and we can govern and manage an industry and bring back tourism. Out of that, we saw a lot of flights that we didn't have before. A new flight from Dallas, a new flight from Chicago, a new flight from JFK, and a whole range of issues.
Hold that point, we have a call. Good evening to you. This is Newssmaker Live. You on the air? Hello, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, good night, Tim. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Fedee, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Yes, Mr. Fedee, how are you? Good night, good evening.
Good evening. Can I get some more volume?
Okay, Mr. Producer, get us some more volume, please.
That's the first time I'm calling the program.
Hello?
I think we have lost the call.
Yeah, Tim,
Yes, go ahead, yeah. Could you hear a little better?
you tell me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, Tim, that's the first time I'm calling the program.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Mr. Fedee, good night. How are you?
Good night, I'm well.
All right. Okay, let me tell you something. Mr. Fedee, I've listened to you and watching you and Tim on television. You know. So, I hear your statement and how you talk and things. But let me tell you something. When Mr. Shastney was the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, he made SLP popular because he did not follow the right direction. I'm telling you. I'm a UWP by birth. I'm serious. But when I study his government, and the way you all operate, that is what that caused the demise of the party.
Such as, caller, give me some specifics. Such as.
Specific. I could remember when Mr. Shastney just came on the scene. Tim.
Mm-hmm.
The first political meeting was held in Grenada, January. That's Jimmy Henry was going up for the constituency. You remember that, Tim?
Yes, sir. Continue.
So, what I'm telling you, that night, it was Mr. Shastney and Gail Rigobert attend that meeting. And I told Mr. Shastney, you will be the next Prime Minister of the country. You listening to him, right?
Yeah, let's get to the point. What did he do? What did he do that was wrong, caller?
I will tell you. Because he did not reach the people at the level that they are yet supposed to. Because a lot of money been spent. Listen to me. A lot of money been spent. A lot of things happen. But there was nothing to show to really get the people conscience so that they could re-elect him. That was the problem and the demise. And there had a lot of confusion in the party, which they wasn't, they didn't want to accept whatever that was taking place. Because I felt really disappointed in the UWP. Very much. I'm serious. Because today, the problem we have now they complaining and they talking. They were the one that caused SLP to sit on that chair right now because of they did not reach the demand they had to. That is the problem. And there's more into that thing. Because if you have to check the amount of money that's spent on this island, in this island, and what it is there to show, to convince people that they could have re-elect Chastity as the Prime Minister, that was the problem. And a lot of things that they have to be said, and a lot of things that have to be done, and they did not do it. And right now, they're on the other side, they showed everything to be done. And I'm telling you, Tim, there's more. I'll call again one day.
Okay, thanks so much. Let's get a reaction from you, Mr. Fedee.
Thanks for the caller very much for his very frank call. You know, we were at a difficult time, like I was saying to you, when you're dealing with a matter such as COVID-19, and, you know, many individuals are at risk of losing their lives and falling sick, then really you have to rise above the politics. But he was basically saying that we didn't play the politics right. We didn't do enough for people, popular things that people would have liked. But it was a very, very difficult time. And, you know, I'm not sure that there were other governments in the Caribbean that could have done much more in terms of delivery to the people, in terms of the populist policies that he is referring to. But he's got a point.
Do you run the risk as a government of losing touch with the people? Because, take for example, with the onset of COVID, you're so preoccupied with looking at things from a macro level that when things happening at the micro level, at the community level, you really are out of touch in terms of those things that are really impacting the people, and to see how you could rectify them.
There's always the danger of that. And so, which is why I think that the biggest lesson then is to ensure that you govern from the bottom up, and to ensure you govern with more of a common touch, and to ensure that you are not losing sight of the macro issues, because developing this country, there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts to generating the 21,000 jobs that you will need to ensure that you can bring the unemployment rate close to zero. There's no shortcut.
On that point, we have a call.
Yeah.
Good evening to you. This is Newssmaker Live. You are on the air. Hello.
Good evening, Tim. Good
Hi.
evening to your guest.
Good evening to you, caller.
I called your show a few months back prior to the elections when you had the opposition leader, the Prime Minister, on Chastity.
Mm-hmm.
And I did say to him that I had voted for him and I would give him a few months to prove himself, because I was really disappointed in the manner in which the direction I saw the country heading. And he just brushed me aside and almost called me a liar on national TV, claiming that I hadn't supported them, because if I had supported them, I would have known the vision and the direction. I didn't see any change, and I exercised my democratic right and voted on the other side. Timothy, I didn't expect anything good in terms of the direction of the country. It's hard times. We know that the coffers were empty. But I voted against the last regime because my democracy was being eroded. Forget economy, there are some things, crime, that will be with us, no matter which political party is in power. But when I see my democracy slipping under my eyes and nobody seems to care, if you can't tell me you couldn't challenge Honorable Chastity and his team, his regime, when you tell me, and I heard Honorable Fedee talking about perception, etc., etc., it was my perception that you all cut the subvention to the Blind Welfare Association. You all lent about how many millions of dollars inviting investors to invest in St. Lucia with my NIC money. I have money invested in NIC that I cannot get until I'm 65. When you tell me about National Trust, because the chairman did not fire Mr. Tulsi, was doing a damn good job, you sabotage National Trust because they didn't get, and you tell me I'll vote for that administration. I think they, according to our local partners, they have to wheel and come again. Timothy, I think maybe being absent, being away, they can regroup, rethink, refocus. Mr. Fedee touched about the unemployment rate going low. And successive governments have failed the youth. Timothy, like you, I don't know what the youth economy is. But what I'm saying, at one time, if you left for Louis or A-level, you were guaranteed a decent job. Right now, students leave in school with associate degrees, their only hope is a call center. That's what we have our children aspiring to, and they cannot use their skills, half of what they learn, into good use, because we figure we give them jobs. What kind of job? We talk about having the young people being part and forefront of the development of the country. Their role is the development of the country has left them behind. A lot of apple in the sky, pie in the sky. What's their role except to answer phones for some foreign investor call centers? I think successive governments have failed the youth, and we keep spending money on consultancies, foreigners, on fact-finding missions, etc., and administrative offices, but we're not getting to the root of the matter. I think we have to come together and let's try and save our country, the little we have left of it. Thank you, TP.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, Mr. Fedee.
Well, again, thanks for the suggestions there by your caller. Tim, every government must have a short-term plan, a medium-term plan, and a long-term plan. And I think that you have to pick the low-hanging fruit. So, for example, you have a massive problem of unemployment. Do we reject the tourism jobs and the jobs in information technology or the BPOs? Absolutely not. It's a beginning, but we're not, by starting there, we're not saying that this is the ideal or this is the end or our end goal for our young people. We certainly had to do a lot more, but it was a government, like I said to you, 3 short years from 2016 to 2019. We were disrupted by the greatest economic challenge that the world has ever seen, COVID-19, and one of the greatest one of the greatest crisis situations in a pandemic that no government has ever had to go through. So a lot of the things that we would have liked to have advanced and would have made more momentum on, it became impossible.
We have a call, caller point. Good evening to you, Newssmaker Live, you on the air?
Good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Fedee.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, one of the things I'm saying, you did mention about the fighting crime. And I know when you speak about crime or maybe...
I can't hear you, caller.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, please. We'll try to decipher what you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Speaking about crime.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying in the crime situation, you're saying about both parties coming together and finding a solution or coming up with ideas. Over the years, within both political parties, I hear that all the time. And one of the things I'm recommending to you is that the other side might not want to hear what you have to say. So what you can really do, you're on the air now, you have your radio station, is to itemize all the things you believe that could be done to fight crime, and let solutions know this is what you are recommending, and put it out. So the other side will hear, well, this is what the opposition has to do, and the opposition is begging for the two of us to come together to fight crime. It's all good and well saying, let's come together. But over the years, I mean, I have experience in that. The opposition and the government and the opposition never get together to fight it. You know that, I know that, and I've seen these things over the last, I must say, 50 odd years. So the question is, itemize it. Put it in the press, let everybody read it, and let the government in power read it. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. What Lucal is saying is that you have the platform. You should be making some clear pronouncements with
I heard him. I heard him.
Crime problem.
I heard him.
Mm-hmm.
He's
right. My apologies to you.
Yeah, sure.
Good evening. Newssmaker Live, you on the air. Hello.
Hi. Good night. How you doing? Hi.
Good evening to you, caller. We're having a tough time hearing the callers, so maybe our technician can try to rectify this problem for us, please, so that we could have a show where we could interact with the audience and hear clearly what they're saying. Go ahead, caller.
Okay.
Mm.
I want to ask Mr. Fedee a question.
You have a question for Mr. Fedee?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you condone any form of violence or non-supportive of any form of violence?
Yes. Go ahead again.
Okay, now I'm asking, do you condone or are you not in support of any form of violence?
Because if I'm not in support of any form of violence?
Yeah, or are you? Because I distinctively remembered one of your ardent UWP supporters called Sky FM and said that if the Labour Party doesn't finish St. George, they're going to burn St. George, they're going to do all kinds of things, riot and every kind of. I never heard the UWP came out once and make a statement and say they condone that kind of statement or kind of behavior. They never came out and say nothing about it. I was also wondering why. Is it because you're also supportive of that? Is that why you're kept quiet? And you'll say your party is against crime? But this is a form of a crime. It was being said on national radio, on your radio station. And you all never said nothing about it until it is wrong for the individual to say that. An ardent supporter of yours. Look at another supporter of yours.
The simple answer to your question is I do not condone any form of violence, whether it is from a supporter outside the parliament rushing across to attack supporters of an opposing party, or whether it's from a PR government official that would clearly send voice notes to a private citizen to say that they would kill them, or whether it's an MP in the parliament that use obscene language, or to or to use his position in the parliament or his voice to use obscenities and abuse verbally someone else. So I just want to make it clear to you, I do not support or condone any form of violence. So I hope I've answered your question.
So here you are, right? You automatically jump because of what on what happened in Parliament. You jump right there, right?
Caller, let's not be hypocritical. No, hold on. Caller, let's not be hypocritical about this whole thing, okay? Let's not be hypocritical about it, caller. And he has he has answered the question. You asked him a particular question. Hold on. Hold on. We are in St. Lucia. We know what's happening. We know across the board what is happening. Okay, so I don't want you to be hypocritical and look at it. Hold on, caller, please. Don't look at it from one perspective. Okay, let's look at it across the board, and all of us will be happy. Yes, caller.
He has not answered my question yet. Why didn't the UWP come out at that time to say that they condone it or we don't like what's going on?
They condemn it. Why they didn't condemn it?
Why condemn it? They didn't say nothing. And look at another one again. Another ardent supporter again.
But caller, why you keep focusing on one side, caller?
Because
hold on, caller. Hold on. Why you keep focusing on one side? Because the crime problem that we have in St. Lucia right now, caller, hold on, is not because we have criminal elements from SLP alone, or UWP alone. Across the board, that is the problem that we're experiencing. So don't be hypocritical about it, sir.
I am making a reference to the police. I'm making a reference to the police. You're going to post about our police force, where he made a statement on the video stating that he is enjoying
Okay, caller.
The criminals are
caller, listen. The world is watching. People understand what's happening in St. Lucia. People are seeing all the videos across the board. Let us try to be as fair and honest as possible, sir. Okay?
All
right?
I'm being fair.
You are?
Yeah, I'm being fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, caller. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Good to see you.
Well, we have a lot of issues in this country, and I think that we want to make sure that when we add our voice publicly to them, that we use our voices to utter views that are fair, balanced, and constructive.
You have another call. Good evening. Newssmaker live on the air.
Hello?
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good night.
Good night to you, caller. Go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Okay. What I got to say is this here. That 5 for 5, the great bands, the greatest leader in the world, Alan Michael Shasta, offered to my people. My boys in Barbados said to me, if Alan Shasta had offered them that, he would be a national hero. Who turns down $30 for water? Who turns down $75 towards the light? Who turns down $200 towards groceries? Who turns down $1,000 each year for your kids? Who turns down $75,000 for every man, woman, and child health care? Who does that? Only solutions. What has SLP has done? Who takes unemployment from 13% or 15% to 40%? SLP. So what are those people talking about? The only body will turn down those kind of things is St. Lucia's. They would make the great man a national hero today if he was a Barbarian. And not even mayor will get a vote. So what are y'all talking about? Show me what the SFP has been doing. Just make y'all suffer. Telling y'all go and eat more green figs. You ain't got no shame? You ain't got no shame, man? Go eat more green figs. You can't get no investors, nothing. People are dying, people are suffering. St. Lucia is in the worst state it's ever been in the history of St. Lucia. Nobody has done more work than the great man, Sir Alan Michael Shaste, in his 3-year term. I say 3 years, because that COVID that destroyed the whole world. Where you're living? You're living on a different planet? And now when you will last take office, your Dr. Kenny, Anthony, could have done nothing for the country. He said something happened. What happened? He bankrupted the damn country. Nobody could have borrowed money. Could not borrow money from nobody. Nobody will lend him a penny because he cannot pay it back. The country was bankrupt, and the great man came and took it from zero and bring it up there. And know what y'all done? Y'all take it down from a 10 and bring it down to a 1. And let me continue. I'm hearing now that the projects that y'all have stopped, SFP has stopped. The former minister, Guy Joseph, was in Trinidad. Trinidadians are laughing at him, telling him that the projects, you don't want us to get the projects in St. Lucia? We get them now. Trinidadians are coming in to work on those projects. St. Lucia's been discarded. What kind of nonsense you're talking about? In which country that goes on? If that was in Bermuda, it would be chaos. If that was in Barbados, that would be chaos. If that was in America, anywhere else, that would be chaos. What are y'all talking about?
Okay, caller. Thanks a lot. All right, in the chat room, people are accusing me of all kind of things there, but somebody says, what about the woman who said a bomb should be placed under Alan and Guy? Why are we playing with this? Let's continue with our broadcast. We have another call. Good evening to you, Newssmaker Live. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, good evening to you.
I agree with the call. Hello? I agree with the Beijing because... agree with the caller because I see St. Lucian doing a lot of shit with themselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next time you could use the word nonsense instead, caller. All right, let's continue with your calls. Once again, for my guest, former Tourism Minister, Mr. Dominic Fedee, is opposition senator as well. We were talking, I think, just before we started taking the calls, we were talking about opening our borders at this point in time, the practicality of doing that. We have a call. Good evening, Newssmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes. I have a few things I want to say, basically. I want to say good night to Mr. Fedee.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening. I remember having a conversation with you some time ago. I don't know if you remember me down at Mega J. We had a good conversation for over an hour. Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. But let me give you the gist of what I want to say. I think Timothy asked you about, why you think the UWP lost the election miserably. And you point out to COVID as one of the main reasons. I don't disagree with you. I agree with you to some extent. But the UWP had made some fundamental mistakes that must be acknowledged by you guys as parliamentarians who serve under that government moving forward. I hope you're getting my gist. And I'll give you a few. One is I think there was this battle, in my mind, useless battle with the St. Lucia National Trust. And that battle was over the Dolphin Park, if I'm correct. And to me, it ended up being a useless battle because today, there's no Dolphin Park. And there was this big hullabaloo with the executive director, Tulsi. While I thought it was in poor taste for him to be on the media back and forth with the Prime Minister at the time. But again, for me, what was the battle about? Because here you had a guy who maybe for some reason disagreed because of his maybe the organization stance on the Dolphin Park. But to me, the government, the Prime Minister himself made some statements in that regard. And then the end product was you had a national trust who basically didn't want to see him, right? Campaigned against him. And in the end, there was no Dolphin Park. So for me, at the end of the day, what was the whole battle for? All right, that's one. Second, my personal thing about this was this thing with the what do you call that? This headquarters, which house also the custody suites, which was one of the main holding areas for persons when they are arrested, because the way the Castries Basin is so congested with a lot of people living there. So when the police arrest somebody, they would have them in this facility before they could go to the courts and whatnot. Let me tell you, it was totally to me ad hoc with the crime situation that we faced at the time and now to go ahead and just break down this thing. It was lack of foresight in the UWP, to just go ahead and break down the custody suites. Right now, for the police, if they have to arrest somebody, they have to call stations as far as Dennery and Soufrière to house, an inmate for a weekend or whatnot. I mean, it's crazy. Look at the situation now. I mean, the crime situation is out of hand because these guys, they know they have no holding area for them. Most times the police have to self-bail them and let them go back on the streets again. That is number 2. Number 3, I mean, the election date. I mean, the election date normally, it's always on the anniversary of the previous election. I do not understand why Alan didn't see it fit to call election maybe a month before or maybe on the anniversary, but letting the election go past 21, the due date, the anniversary of the previous one. I mean, it was just, stubbornness on his part. Because after the opposition had so much time already to prepare, you're giving them an extra month on top of the month again. I mean, the guy just didn't listen. I don't think he really understand what was going on. And it was like self-destruction. I mean, I have never seen a government being in office and doing everything to get out of office. That's the way I saw UWP behave in the last few years. There was no effort to want to prove to the country that, hey, we are here, we're working for you to stay, or to keep working for you. I mean, I have never seen this in my entire being a St. Lucian, a government working to get out of office than to stay in and work for the people. And I will wait to hear your response. Maybe you might differ, but we'll see how it goes. Let me hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much for calling, sir. Quite a lot. Mr. Fedee, the floor is yours.
We're looking for a political scientist. I think I would hope to bump into my friend again at Mega J so we can have another discussion.
My apologies, we have a
offline.
Call. Sure. Good evening to you, Newssmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hello.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, I would like to comment on what the gentleman... Hello?
Yes, ma'am, I'm
listening to you. I would like to comment on what the gentleman just said, because what he's saying there, it is of poor taste. Because you cannot tell me custody suites, they didn't have anybody there again. The place was just abandoned. Vagrants come in and stay there and all kind of things. So why he's making that as a point that the government, they tried to lose because of that? That's not making any sense what the gentleman is saying. To me, personally, that's not making any sense. One of the things he's saying. And then he's talking about the National Trust going back and forth. I think they asked him for a proposal. What is it that you all want done? And I don't know, some people are just not thinking before they just come up and think. So these are the reasons why you would put out a government for that. So you mean to say, because they have the crime now, we need the custody suites they had down there where the place was just abandoned to put prisoners or whatever. You see, that was a condition that was just inhumane. So I don't know what he's talking about. I think you have to come and bring back some points to make the entire country understand what is he trying to say, because it's just poor taste. To me, that's what it is.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, you do get a lot of calls, don't you? And some very interesting perspectives as well, driven by your callers. But, it's been enjoyable and very interesting to sit here and listen to the various feedback coming from all
We have
the
another
callers.
contributor. Good evening, Newssmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello? Hello, good evening to you, caller. All right, we have lost that one. Let's see what we have in the chat room. Somebody says, Uncle Shaz didn't do anything wrong. Lucians listened to the lies from Labour. Let's see if we have another comment I could go through while we are awaiting your contribution. Somebody said, perfectly said. Good evening, Newssmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Fedee.
Good evening, sir.
I'm joining the program rather late, but there was something I just...
You have missed a lot.
Mr. Fedee, insofar as the comments made by the current Minister of Tourism, insofar as reinventing the wheel and moving away from land-based tourism and focusing on community tourism, as they call it now. Did you hear those comments?
I'll say the honest truth to you, caller. My own opinion on this is that we started and advanced and took it to a very real and fast level. If you look at what has happened in Soufrière, in Ancillary, if you look at all the minister has really done is change the name of village tourism. In fact, the legislation was going to be called Village and Community Tourism Development Act. He has changed it and brought it to Parliament as Community Tourism Development. So, a new minister coming in and wants to, make something his own. I don't have any problems with that. But what I want to ensure is that he doesn't, at the same time in doing so, lead people down the wrong path. Because I'll tell you what, my memory is very, very sharp. Go back to 2006, this minister told us that we should invest in apartments, we should go and extend our houses, because he indicated that, we're going to have so many people here for the World Cup. Remember that? Yep. And a lot of St. Lucians did make a lot of investments into their homes. They took a lot of extra loans and indebted themselves. And the World Cup was an absolute disaster from the standpoint of visitor arrivals. So on this occasion, whatever the minister is doing, I hope that it is done before he goes out there and encourage St. Lucians to invest in a particular area by way of policy, that he would do the proper research to make sure that there's the demand for it. Because you see, caller, too often what we do, we look at business, and not just tourism, any business. We have this great idea, but any great idea, you have to research it to make sure that there's a demand for it. And so I hope that there is some rigorous research taking place to ensure that there is the proper work being done to find out what the market really wants and how we can link that with what's taking place. But in our effort, with our village tourism program, we had already signed a loan agreement with the CARICOM Development Fund to make money is available, loans, easier for people getting into small tourism businesses. We started fixing up our villages in Soufrière, in Ancillary, in Grosely, so that we can change the ambience in some of those villages and some of those communities that are bypassed. We looked at, for example, the whole issue of training and capacity building. We had trained over 300 vendors to ensure that we can have greater linkages, we can drive more sales to the vendors, and to give them that ability. The agency, as is the plan now, is to give concessions to small tourism operators, locally owned businesses. If you look at plans that Invest in Lucia had for the Sandy Beach area, there is a plan that exists to rework the highway and to also make lands available to St. Lucians so that they can invest.
Let's hear from the caller.
Let me just clarify my initial question to you, because all what you are explaining there, I am very much aware of it and know where you all wanted to take it. My concern with his last statement was when he said move away from land-based tourism, which is the foundation, the hotels, in other words, and encourage people in the community tourism. While I don't have a problem with community tourism, it is not something you move away from land-based and encourage community tourism, because he's saying a lot of the money is now leaving the country, but he's trying to get it to stay in the country. I have no problem in him encouraging people in the community tourism drive to do something extra that they may earn some. But when he's making a statement as moving away from land-based tourism, this is very worrying to me. So that's where I wanted you to come in specifically.
So,
what you think
so
about
I get
that.
the sense that they
Okay, caller, that's it? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I get the sense that what they're trying to do is to get people to come out of the hotels and go to the communities. But you do so by simply ensuring that you organize very exciting tours and very interesting tours that people will want to do. However, what Airbnb has done for us is that you have at least over 1,000 St. Lucians that have invested in the accommodation sector. Tim, when you research and you ask people, where have you spent the majority of the monies in your vacation, it is always on the accommodation.
Okay, let's take a call.
So therefore, by discouraging St. Lucians from not getting into accommodation and getting into some of these, I would say, fringe side of the industry, you are not doing them a favor by getting them into the business. And so what you have to do is to get them into the subsector where they're going to make the most money and not to discourage them from doing so.
We have a call. Good evening. Thanks for holding on.
Good evening, Tim.
Hi.
And
Good evening to you,
Fedee.
caller. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
I just have a really short contribution.
Sure.
The male caller who called and gave all the reasons why he felt that UWP lost the last election, I think he has it a bit distorted. UWP on the ground, in people's minds, lost the election simply because of all the lies and the propaganda that was put on the media for the last 7 years. I mean, it was a lot of incomplete stuff. People did not do their due diligence and check. And this is the major reason why I think UWP lost the election.
I would agree with that. That's been a major factor. In fact, caller, when I look at, for example, they said we should close the borders. Immediately upon coming into government, they said, oh, we can't close the borders. Let's now embrace the tourists. They said that they were going to get the 500 we were giving to vendors and taxi drivers, it was too little. And when they come in, that they were going to give 1,500. In fact, the Prime Minister is on record on a very famous morning talk show saying that he never said so. The following day, the tape revealed that he did say that. And so these are just examples. The issue of giving excise tax to the fishermen. Today we see that they're raising the price of gas on fishermen, on bus drivers, and on all these other sectors that are so very, very critical. They said the tax refunds below $5,000 were going to be delivered in 100 days. Well, we've had 200 days. Nothing has happened for those individuals. So what we see is I have never seen so much flip-flopping, so much inconsistency, and a government that doesn't stand by his word like this one. They have shamelessly, Tim, departed from their own words, and it's like a totally new set of individuals that we're talking to. This is the biggest lesson that I have learned from the last election campaign, and I have said to myself that if it is going to cause you to lie to win an election, then I prefer not to win. Because one of the things I can tell you, caller, is that when you do that, you lose a lot of faith. And which is why in 9 short months, you see that there's so much disenchantment, you see that there's so much frustration, and you see that even the very SLP supporters who went out and campaigned and tried to get this government into assuming office, that they too are very disenchanted with what's going on. In fact, a lot of people are embarrassed even, because a lot of those people who were insisting and making it appear as though they can pave St. Lucia with, the streets of St. Lucia with gold, they are now singing a different song. We saw a government minister recently chastising his supporters to suggest to them that he can't give a contract to everyone that voted for him, and basically to suggest that they should stop begging. That's not what we heard before the election. So we're seeing a different set of men and women that ran the election campaign 9 months ago. And I think that it's very sad for politics. And I think that's exactly the reason why so many people have lost faith in politics and in politicians, because of those inconsistencies.
Yes.
Final word from you, caller?
I'm in total agreement. Final word from me. Another main reason why is because out of 100% of the voters, only about 51% went out to vote.
Correct.
And in that 51%, I think 27% voted for the Labour Party. So in reality, 73% of the population did not vote for Labour Party. So the mandate that they have, or the thinking that they have, it's all an illusion.
Yeah, very good analysis. Very good analysis.
Okay, caller, thank you so much. Let's see if we can take one final call, and then I'll give you the final word, Mr. Senator Dominic Fedee. So let's take a final call. Good evening, Newssmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening, team.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Mr. Minister, good evening to you, sir. Our former minister.
Good evening to you, sir. Good evening.
Yes, sir. I've heard you made some really, incredulous statements there tonight.
Who's that? My good friend? That's my good friend, Azzy.
Yes, Peter Alexander. I'm not afraid to say why I'm here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right?
Is that why
Mr. Fedee, how did you establish that people are disillusioned?
By the way, my friend, how is the party going? How is one
did you
going?
establish that people are disillusioned? Okay, with the government. How did you establish that?
Are you finished or?
No, I asked you one question. I'm waiting for an answer.
Well,
I'm not going to ask you all my questions.
Azzy, I live in St. Lucia, and I walk the floor. I go to the supermarket. I go to the gas stations. I go to the market. I talk to people. I still go to ancillary. Have you been there? When was the last time you've been there? I travel this country, all over the country. And I'm telling you, my friend, whether you like it or not, whether you want to hear it, people are disillusioned. It is the first time I've seen a government given a mandate and they have squandered it. In fact, I should say you all, because you've made it plain to me that you're a supporter of the SLP.
Yes, I campaigned for them. Yes.
So I know that even you are embarrassed.
No. I really don't know where you get your information from.
So, you have to put up a front, my friend.
Do not come on television without any factual basis.
I understand. Go ahead. Do what you have to do.
I'm Dominic. Don't do that.
But this is
do not come on television and just out of the top of your head decide that the people are disillusioned. You don't know that.
Do you want me to answer you, my friend? My friend, would you like me to answer you? So therefore,
walking the street and speaking to people
you're about to do your first budget, almost a year, and you've got nothing to show but empty promises, silly excuses.
And you say more lies. That is why that is why you're not going to remain there. That is not true.
The issues that we face in St. Lucia, your government has failed to grasp it, and your government has failed to come up with a plan. Up to now, we don't have a clear direction how we're going to fight crime, how we're going to solve the high unemployment rate, how we're going to solve the fiscal situation. You want to talk to me or not, my friend?
No, but you want to take the whole thing.
How we're going to solve the problem of inflation?
Let's have Peter.
All we're hearing, Peter, frankly, is still a lot of noise. In fact, the SLP won the election, and you guys behave so angry as if you've lost.
But who's angry? But what is wrong with you, Dominic? Where are you getting? No. Are you all there? Listen to yourself. You understand?
Go ahead, Azzy.
You have no basis for coming and say that the people are disillusioned. Right? You have done no poll, you have done no survey, you have done anything. So you're just speaking on top of your head. Right? And that does not make sense to me.
So reveal to me what your poll has shown. What did your poll say?
What, sorry?
The poll that you have done.
You are in no position to tell the nation.
Reveal to the nation now, the poll that you have done
Dominic, I am
arrive
telling
at
you,
the fact.
You are in no position to determine that the people of St. Lucia are disillusioned. You absolutely know, and that is exactly why you are in opposition. Because you didn't understand what is happening in the country, right? You're up to now, you have not analyzed why the people voted you out. Okay, it's things like Cabot, which I explained to Tim this afternoon. This sort of mismanagement of our funds.
So hold on, caller. So hold on. Let me take you on now. So you saying that you conducted the research, you conducted a poll, and you know it's because of Cabot that the United Workers Party lost?
No, I said among others.
But you know Cabot is one of them.
Yes, absolutely.
On what basis? No. Hold on, Peter. Hold on. Let's go along with what you saying a while ago. Your argument. On what basis? What poll did you conduct?
I didn't say a poll, you know. I said to you.
What research you did?
That's one of the. No, hold on.
No. Peter, hold on.
The poll was on July 27th.
I'm just saying to you, on what basis?
The poll was on July 27th.
That you know it's because of Cabot. I'm just asking.
No, I said one of the issues. Okay, and the poll was on July 27th.
All right.
Okay, and you all barely managed to hold on to 2 seats and come back with that foolishness. Instead of sitting down and analyzing why you lose, you come there and try and fool the people again. Right? And you will see what happens in the next election. Okay? Right? But I will tell you something, right? This sort of governance that happened in the last 5 years, you all are absolutely lucky, right, that you all held on to 2 seats. Okay, that's the worst governance, right? I'm much older than you, and I've gone through everything from George Odlum in 1974 all the way through to elections now. And I've never, ever in my entire life seen such poor governance. Right? And there are a lot of things that are going to be investigated. And I hope you can open your mouth at the end of it. Okay? Good night.
All right, Peter.
Okay, Peter, we will speak in a few years. We will see what the investigations reveal. Thank you very much for your call.
Final comments from you, Mr. Fedee?
Yeah. Well, Tim, I want to thank you very much for having me. I want to thank all the callers who called. Certainly it was a very interesting discussion tonight. I really enjoyed myself, had fun. And, we have a lot of issues to face. We have a big press conference tomorrow, the United Workers Party, and we're going to be discussing the crime situation in the country and to come up with we're going to give some ideas as to how we believe where the country is at right now and how we can address the rather dangerous crime situation, which is causing so many people in this country to feel anxious, to feel frustrated and hopeless. And, we have to continue to work together. We can debate the issues vigorously and passionately. I do enjoy a good debate because I believe that it is out of a contest of ideas that we will have the very best solutions for a clear direction for our country. The budget is coming up, and we are hoping that we will see some good policies in there that will take our country through the next financial year. If we don't, we will certainly be keeping this government honest in the parliamentary debates and the discourse in the public as it relates to the direction in which they're going to take this country in the policies for the next 12 months.
All right, Senator Dominic Fedee, thank you so much for being my guest on this evening's Newssmaker Live. And to you, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for contributing via your calls and your discussions on our DBS Facebook page. If it's Wednesday, it's Newssmaker Live. Hope you'll join me tomorrow afternoon from 12:30 on Power 97.9 FM for Newspin, and of course on power979.com, as well as the Newspin Facebook page. We now turn our attention to the clip that peaked. Once again, as a broadcast, thank you so much for watching. It's a very safe and enjoyable evening. My name is Timothy Poleon saying good night and see you next time.
I salute Vega here. I would like to be judged as being the Prime Minister, not being judged as being part of a government.
Came into government that we had a manifesto and a vision and mission that had been approved by my party, by the highest body.
We have to take pride on how we've handled
But illegal entry of persons coming in from Martinique, and Martinique remains an area of higher risk
That's
for
why the
us
campaigning, you
because
see all the nice things, all the appealing things, all the emotional things to touch people's heart because you want them to support you and follow you, you inspire them, you give them hope, and they perform with it.
But what about the culture of people getting into office and not being effective in terms of
Portfolio.
No, but caller, hold on.
How come his portfolio?
Hold on. Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's Newssmaker Live.